आपको स्क्रीन दिख रही है?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है. What we'll do is we'll do a classification project and इस project में basically हमें करना क्या है? We have two data sets here. Let me show it to you. One is train.csv and another data set is test.csv. So if I show you train.csv, uh, basically इस data set में we have ID, some keyword, location details, and some text. So let's imagine that there was some disaster that took place. So usually what happens is Twitter, formerly and now it's called as X. वहाँ पे people tweet text related to any incident that's happening. So what we have done is basically we have got some tweets ka data that were done on the Twitter or X platform, and then there is a target value. So target value से मुझे ये पता चलता है that whether this tweet is related to the disaster incident or not. So if it is 1, it means it is related to disaster. If it is 0, it means it is not related to disaster. So what I want to do is I want to build a machine learning model that is capable of classifying whether the tweet is related to disaster or it is not related to disaster. So test वाले में I have this data and this data is like already labeled. And if I in the train part and in the test part, if I show it to you, then there is no label. So test वाला जो मेरा script है वहाँ पे I don't have any output label. So I'll be building model and then I'll be assigning labels whether this is related to disaster or not. So सबको problem statement समझ आ गया? What are we talking about? ठीक है. Okay. And आप लोगों ने notebook setup कर दिया? Then we start coding. जीतू और आशी आप लोग भी कर रहे हो hands on साथ में? Okay, fine. So first of all, what we'll do is we'll basically import the necessary libraries. So I will just write import pandas as pd, import numpy as np, from scalon.model selection. Uh, I'll import train testlet and from sklearn.feature extraction, I am going to import df vectorizer. Then, given that it is a classification problem, can you tell me what algorithm can I use? What algorithm can I use to create a model? You guys can answer in text. What algorithms can I possibly use to build a classification model? कोई तो आंसर करो। हाय दिव्यांशी, गुड आफ्टरनून।
गुड आफ्टरनून मैम।
आप सो रहे थे?
नहीं मैम, हेयर कट कराने चले गए थे।
अच्छा अच्छा, ओके। मुझे लगा संडे है, एवरीवन इज स्लीपिंग। मैंने सबकी नींद खराब की और सब मुझे गाली दे रहे होंगे।
अरे नहीं मैम, दोपहर में सोते ही नहीं है।
अच्छा, तब
वो
ठीक
तो बस खाली पढ़ाई के वक्त नींद आती है बस।
है। ओके, ठीक है। आई शेयर द डेटा सेट ग्रुप में। एक बार ही डाउनलोड एंड डू द सेटअप। अनन्या, जीतू,
यस
आशी, will you answer कौन सा एल्गोरिथम यूज कर सकते हैं? What are the algorithms that you studied for classification?
No logistic.
हाँ, करेक्ट। लॉजिस्टिक रिग्रेशन यूज कर सकते हैं। फिर आपने सपोर्ट वेक्टर मशीन पढ़ा होगा, एंड डिसीजन ट्री क्लासिफायर पढ़ा होगा, रैंडम फॉरेस्ट क्लासिफायर पढ़ा होगा। याद है, भूल गए?
No याद है।
याद है, ठीक है। सो एनी ऑफ दीज एल्गोरिथम्स कैन बी यूज्ड। ओके, सो व्हाट वील डू इज वील जस्ट यूज लॉजिस्टिक रिग्रेशन। आप लोग क्या करना, दैट यू ट्राई टू ऐड इन more algorithms. Okay, like you can add decision tree classifier, random forest classifier, जो भी और classification algorithms हैं. And one thing is that I'll be showing you a different method of building a model. We use pipeline creation. So you will learn that also through this project. And it's very easy to build a pipeline and then add in more algorithms to it. ठीक है?
Yes मैम।
दिव्यांश, आपका सेटअप हो जाए एक बार मुझे बता देना। जस्ट रिपीट द कॉन्टेक्स्ट, व्हाट आर वी ट्राइंग टू बिल्ड फॉर यू।
ओके मैम।
ठीक है। Meanwhile, आप लोग will continue doing the imports. So we imported TF-IDF vectorizer. So basically हम TF-IDF use करेंगे to generate numerical representations of my textual data. And then what I'm going to write here is from scikit-learn dot linear model import logistic regression. एंड फॉर मेट्रिक्स हम वही क्लासिफिकेशन वाले मेट्रिक्स यूज करते हैं. सो वी कैन यूज एनीथिंग. वी कैन यूज F1 स्कोर, वी कैन यूज pipeline, recall anything. So confusion matrix जो सब रहता है. And one more thing that I'm importing is from scikit-learn pipeline import pipeline. Just to give you some context, what do we actually mean by pipeline? So I'll just show you through the official documentation. So pipeline क्या करता है? It allows you to basically it's the same. The word itself says like pipeline. So if I show you in terms of code, आप इसमें multiple चीजें add कर सकते हो. For example, आपने scaling add कर दिया and then model building add कर दिया. So you can add multiple steps in this pipeline and then you will call pipe.fit, pipeline.fit. तो जब भी आप इसके ऊपर फिट मेथड कॉल करते हो तो सबसे पहले वो क्या करेगा? The first thing that pipeline does is, uh, given that it is this fit method, it will reach this first step. So पहला step क्या है? Scale और implement करना, like data का standardization करना. So it will first standardize the input data. Once this is done, it will move to the next step of pipeline, which is building a model. So it will build the support vector classifier. Now, अगर आपने एक और model add किया, let's say logistic regression model, so it will also build that model. So that this is how pipeline works. And it is very simple to use this and write everything step by step. So अगर मान लो multiple steps involved होते हैं, then it becomes very easy to write it in terms of code. Not sure if they have given any such examples. अभी यहाँ पे नहीं है, but we'll build one such pipeline for ourselves. So we'll do the model building and we'll also include TF-IDF vectorizer उसी में. I hope this part is clear. What does the pipeline means? कुछ डाउट हो तो पूछ लो। अच्छा ठीक है।
Ma'am, I am done with the setup.
Okay. Okay, let me just give a quick context starting say. So what we are trying to build is basically we have two data sets. One is called as train.csv, one is called as test.csv. ठीक है, तो अब what we are trying to do is हमारे पास Twitter या X का data है, and let's say that some disaster incident happened. Now, if there's anything happening that is in news, so people usually tweet about it. So what we have in our train data is we have the ID, we have some keywords, we have the location from which the tweet is made, and we have some text. That is the tweet text. And what we are trying to do is we have labels, whether this tweet is related to a disaster incident or not. So if it is related, it is one. If it is not, it is zero. So this is my train data. Similarly, I have test data, but in test data, we just have the text. We don't have the labels. So we want to build a machine learning model that is capable of assigning labels whether this tweet is related to the disaster incident or not. So it's a classification problem. I hope so the problem statement is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the next step, what we are trying to do is, we know how to build models. So it's a simple classification case. The only thing is, the data that we're dealing is a textual data. So it is not in numerical format. We'll be using NLP analysis as well as we'll be combining classification model building along with it. So we've done some imports here. And the way we'll be building the model is we'll use pipeline. So what pipeline helps me do is if I take you to the official documentation. So it says pipeline is a sequence of data transformers with an optional final predictor. So it allows us to sequentially apply a list of transformers to pre-process the data. And what this means is, if I show you here to this example, so मान लो you basically are creating a pipe, ठीक है? Now there is a big pipe sort of thing. Now there are multiple steps. So पहले step में आप क्या कर रहे हो? Standard scalar, ठीक है? Second step में आप SVC, support vector classifier implement कर रहे हो. So this is one such step. Maybe आप missing values को deal करने के लिए like you use fill in a function. So you wrote a function that is capable of handling missing values. तो आपने क्या किया, एक पाइपलाइन बनाई जिसका पहला स्टेप इज हैंडलिंग मिसिंग वैल्यूज, सेकंड स्टेप इज अप्लाइंग डेटा नॉर्मलाइजेशन, एंड थर्ड स्टेप इज मॉडल बिल्डिंग. And what you will do is instead of going one by one for these steps, you just build such pipeline जिसमें एक आपने list पे items define कर दिया. So this is a list and here you define the tuple. So scalar is related to standard scalar, SVC is related to support vector classifier. You just call pipeline.fit. The moment you call pipeline.fit, what it does is ये one by one एक एक step को sequentially execute करता है, 1, 2 and 3. And once it is done, it will give you the final output. That is how it works. So instead of you defining everything one by one, separately, you can create a pipeline, and this pipeline can be reused at multiple places. So it's just a function that can be leveraged to make the code clean and then sequentially define things. So this is what it says.
Yes, sir.
समझ आया सबको pipeline क्या होता है? And once we do it in terms of code, आपको और better समझ आ जाएगा. ठीक है? So the reason I'm covering this is because जब भी आप कभी notebooks देखोगे on Kaggle let's say या फिर GitHub पे, you will find some implementations जहाँ पे pipeline use हुआ है, and then maybe you will find it difficult to interpret कि क्या है ये चीज़, but it is like a very simple concept. And sometimes interview में भी इसके around questions पूछ लिए जाते हैं. So maybe like if you go through some interview questions on the websites such as like you can refer interview bit, you can refer uh, there are more interview के लिए like top 100 ML questions ऐसे करके multiple websites are there. So वहाँ पे you'll find some questions related to it. So once we are done with the imports, let me share this import in chat. जिसने नहीं लिखा है, just copy paste it as of now. Just import it. Abhi we are just building a pure machine learning model. Cannot import name TF-IDF factorizer. Okay, I think so spelling mistake होगा. TF-IDF feature extraction. अच्छा, feature extraction dot text. Text is missing. Yeah. Now it will work. Now once you have done this, what I'm going to do is I am going to load the dataset after the import wala part. So to load the dataset, what I'm going to write here is I'll just write train underscore data, and I'm going to write pd dot read underscore csv, and I'll write train dot csv. Test underscore data, I'll just write read underscore csv, test dot csv. So I have two files, train data and test data. And then I can run the traditional methods like train underscore data dot info, and I can get information about training data. So I have ID, I have keyword, I have location, text, and target, and then I can call train data dot head. So I see some NaN values, of course, are there because if target is 7613, text is 7613. So location में बहुत सारे missing values हैं, keywords में भी हैं. ID is it's non-null integer, ये ठीक है, इसमें कोई missing values नहीं है. So here you see keyword and location is having NaN values. We'll see what to do for this. The thing is, since we're building NLP model, तो मुझे सिर्फ इस text से मतलब है and target से मतलब है. So that is what we'll be using at the end. Similarly, I can do test underscore data dot head. So यहाँ पे you will see that the target column is not present. Of course, it won't be because this is my testing data. I'll be using it for the testing purposes. And again, info. So there are 3,263 columns. Now I'm not writing all this because I know आप लोग को पता है that you just need to add in some notes here. So you can just add in total data is this like observations or insights. So ये आप लोग please कर लेना. Like add in some observations and insights. ठीक है? You can plot in some graphs. यहाँ पे I don't think any graph would make sense because ये text data है. But just note down the insights, whatever you're finding in. Okay. Has everyone done till here? Should I move forward? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm adding in more cells, and the next step is what I'm going to do is pre-processing. So अब मैं क्या करूँगी? We studied NLP, and उसमें we studied that we do lower casing, numerical data. See, given that this is tweets about um, some disaster incident or anything as such, मुझे कोई special character या anything that is non-alphanumeric, ठीक है, numbers या alphabets के अलावा कुछ भी मुझे नहीं चाहिए. So I'll just do one thing. I'll just remove non-alphanumeric characters. So they can be emojis, they can be special symbols. लोग hashtags add कर देते हैं, but then that won't be relevant for us, right? So मुझे ये सब कुछ नहीं चाहिए. And then white space removal. So there can be white spaces as well. So I can like randomly check some tweets and then we'll be able to observe if there are white spaces. So for example, train data, let's say 3000, run system, random. Directly error. Okay, it's my ID already assigned it. Mm, just a second. Okay, like you can just check any random rows. May text relative. Just take text and let's say I'm taking through. I can see the text here, right? I am in the top of the hill and I can see a fire in the woods, which is a disaster related tweet. And 3 people died from the heat wave so far. So maybe not related to disaster, can be like heat wave or because of the fire.
Amel, in space of using numbers in the ratio form, then it is given in Z, like from 3 to 310, 3 ratio 310.
कहाँ पे? Like, can you please repeat दिव्यांशु? मुझे सुनाई नहीं दिया.
inside ट्रेन डेटा के अंदर स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट्स में बोल देते हैं 300 से रेशियो
हाँ,
310 से वो कर रहा है, तो वैसे
300.
ऑब्जर्व कर सकते हैं हम
Okay,
ट्रेन
हाँ.
डेटा.
Just a second. Train data में you're saying like this. हाँ,
Yes,
वो
that
वैसे
is
दे
what.
देगा. I was just trying to access one single tweet. तो उसके लिए. Like this, it will obviously give. Okay, so like this you can do to check a bunch of tweets. If you want to check one single, you can do it likewise anyways. So here you can again like you can see the multiple things like this. I love fruits is not related to, of course, disaster. Then there is some YouTube video related tweet again that is not related to disaster. Best movie not related to disaster. So यहाँ पे zero labeled sign है. This is shadow boxing. The apocalypse is related to disaster. Then this is something related to disaster. This is not readable completely. And to access this one, I can just write what is the number ID 443. Just a second. So 301, like I'm accessing through index. So in this case, it has this whole big tweet, which dot dot BRLB. And then short reading apocalypse in the spirit, the angel took me on the top. Like some tweet maybe related to disaster. So it is, I think, some wild, like in a forest, the fire catches up, something related to that. So basically, we can just see some, observe some tweets to understand the data. And then what we need to do is we need to implement pre-processing, which is lower casing removal, lower casing, then removing non-alphanumeric characters, and then white space removal. So for doing that, I am going to create a function which says def preprocess text, and then I'll just give in my data frame, and I will give in my column. So column may, of course, the column that I'm going to use is this one, text. This is the only relevant column. I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this. I only need the text, and against based upon the text, I'll be deciding what is the target value. So I can just write column here. What I'll do next is, first of all, I'll implement lower casing. So lower casing implement करने के लिए I'm just saying df column, and I can just say df column dot string dot lower function. I hope so ये सबको clear है, इसमें कोई doubt तो नहीं है. This is simple piece of code. ठीक है. Then I'll remove non-alpha numeric character. So इसके लिए I'll use regex pattern. The same thing that we discussed before. So I just use column, and I'm going to update this column by writing in column here, and then I'll just write string, and then I'll just write replace. I'll call replace function. And what I'm going to do here is that I'll say, um, I'm defining a regex pattern, so I need to use this keyword R. Then within brackets, within this quotes, I'm going to define a square bracket, and उसमें I'm going to say anything that is apart from small a to z, capital A to z, and 0 to 9. So अच्छा, just small a to z because capital हमने lower casing कर दिया, so just 0 to 9 and small a to z and space के अलावा इन चीजों के अलावा अगर कुछ भी है then just replace it with a space, एक space दे दिया, and I'll just set regex as true. It string dot replace method takes in a parameter regex, which helps it define that this pattern that we are stating here. So it will not do a literal match कि ये सोचेगा कि मुझे ये चीज exactly ढूंढनी है. When I say regex as true, it will understand that this is a regex pattern that it needs to understand. So what I'm saying is if there's anything that is non-alphanumeric, उसको space से replace कर दो. Anything that is beyond A to Z and 0 to 9. Is this line clear to everyone? क्योंकि ये भी हम लोग ने देखा था बहुत अच्छे से. Next is we'll do remove white space. अभी since I'm introducing space, so मान लो ये जैसे यहाँ पे characters है, तो यहाँ पे double spaces आ जाएगी, यहाँ पे है ampersand है, so all these will have double spaces. So I need to remove white space, extra white space that will be introduced here. So I'll just say remove extra white space, and I'm going to say df column, and इस column में we are going to write df.column dot string dot strip. तो strip क्या करेगा? Any left side पे extra white space, right side पे extra white space दोनों हटा देगा. ठीक है? And then I'll just return df finally after doing all this cleaning stuff. Now once I have defined this pre-processed text function, I hope so ये सबको clear होगा. This is important है ना? The initial pre-processing that we are doing. I'll just add in more cells, and I'm going to apply pre-processing. So here, what I'm going to do is I'll apply it on train data. I'll say pre-processed text. I'll call this function. अब मैं individually भी कर सकती थी, but then defining a function is a neat and clean way of doing it. So I'll give in my training data, and then I'll give in my text data. And in fact, I can just call it as train clean data if I don't want to modify the original data. So I'll create a new data frame here. So I have defined my column, which is text, and I've given my initial data, train data. Once I run this, I will get this train clean data, and I can just do head. Now here, if I'm to check the tweets, I'll check the same tweets. For example, this one, because it's my special characters thing. So I'll just call this once, and then I'll just call train clean data one. I can show you the differences. तो इसमें बैकस्लैश नहीं हटाए. स्पेस भी नहीं हटाया. Why? Let me check with this statement. This one is clean. 205. Let me check it. So, okay. Mm, this is also same. Return PDF I have done. Calling this function is also fine. Mm, 0. Okay, it has done the removal. See, if I'm to show you, it is working fine. Mm, it has done in place modification as well. Train data me because I modified here the original data frame. I should have created a copy here. So let me do df is equals to df dot copy. I just run all the cells again. मैंने copy नहीं create किया था, so it did in place modification again. Because of which I was not able to show you the differences. Just running all the cells again. So
मैं आपने चेंज कहाँ पे किया था?
एक मिनट में एक बार ना सारे cells restart करना then run all cells करती हूँ. So change यहाँ पे I added this df dot copy because मैंने क्या किया original data frame copy नहीं किया and I'm just doing modifications here ना. It will just update the train data. So I can't show you differences. So this line I need to add if I'm to show you differences and I want to keep my original data intact. It can be skipped as well, but I just wanted to show you before pre-processing and after pre-processing the difference. So I think अभी देखो visible है. So train data पे here you can see hashtag, you can see round brackets, you can see colon symbol, adderate का symbol, uh, this apostrophe here. So all these things are existing. Apostrophe here, then these standing dashes, ये भी है. So initially my text contains all these things, but जब मैं pre-processing apply कर देती हूँ, after that I just get a clean text which is just alphanumeric. So this is what we are doing in terms of pre-processing. I hope so difference सबको समझ आ रहा है once we called this function. Is this clear? कुछ doubts हैं यहाँ पे? And have you guys done till here? आगे बढ़ूँ मैं? ठीक है. So once I've applied pre-processing, what I can do is I can split my train data into um, train and validation sets. So I just create X and Y. And what I'm going to do here is I'll just call my train clean data. Make sure you're calling the newer data set if you've created two. And यहाँ पे I'll just use my X or the feature input as my text column and Y will be my target. So that will be the label either 1 or 0. So I just give target here. So basically if I'm to print X, you will see these tweets. And Y में क्या होगा? It's just these labels. So this is my input data. This is my output column. Now what I'm going to do next is I am going to call X train, X test, Y train, and Y test. X train, and it's not text also, it is like val. Text हमारे test data हमारे पास अलग है. Y val validation. So I'll just call train test split on top of it, and I will just give my X Y test size दे दूंगी मैं 0.2. So 20% of the data I'm using as validation data. Random state 42 सेट कर रहे हैं ताकि हम लोग के रिजल्ट सेम आए. um, and yes, that's it. So I hope यहाँ तक सबने कर लिया है, कुछ डाउट नहीं है. ठीक है. Given that we did pre-processing on training data, we also need to make sure कि जो मेरा टेस्ट वाला डेटा है उस पे भी हम pre-processing कर रहे हैं. So I'll just do one thing. I'll just do pre-processing on test data by calling test data and pre-process text. I'll give in my test data here and I'll call it on text column. Because text जिस फॉर्मेट पे हम ट्रेन कर रहे हैं, मैं अगर मेरे पास न्यू टेक्स्ट भी आता है तो मैं पहले क्या करूंगी, टेक्स्ट को क्लीन करूंगी एंड देन आई विल गिव इट टू द मॉडल फॉर प्रेडिक्शन और फॉर इन्फ्लुएंस. ठीक है. So this is one step that we need to ensure that we're doing. So we pre-processed and we have applied pre-processing as well. Now what I need to do next is I need to create a pipeline. So creating a pipeline is very simple. And what we are going to do is we are going to implement TF-IDF vectorizer. देखो मेरा text cleaning हो गया. अब मुझे क्या करना है, numbers में convert करना है. So I'll be using TF-IDF technique for it. So for that, I am going to define a pipeline. I'll just say create a variable called as pipeline. Then I'll call the pipeline function. इस pipeline function में मैं एक list दूंगी. So I'm going to give a list, and this list is going to take in two tuples. तो जो पहला tuple होगा that will be my TF-IDF वाला pipeline, where I'll call the TF-IDF vectorizer function. I'm going to call TF-IDF vectorizer function. I'm going to say max features मुझे मान लो कुछ 10,000 रखने हैं. You can set random values abhi, and then there's something called as ngram. If you want to define, you can. So ngram ka range, I can define, let's say 1 comma 2. So what is basically ngram? So for example, जैसे मेरा ये text है out of. So when I say the term bigram, so to predict the next term, which is this, it will use the previous two terms. So when I say ngram, ngram क्या करता है? Here I given two parameters. So it takes in one and then it takes in two. So two here, I think this is the same thing, bigram. So next word, single word predict करने के लिए ये previous two words use करेगा. I hope so this part is clear. Yeah, should I repeat it once?
मैम एक बार रिपीट कर दीजिए.
Okay. So basically, what happens is, अगर मान लो मुझे next word predict करना है, ठीक है, तो मुझे क्या चाहिए होगा कि मुझे previous words use करने पड़ेंगे. And previous words use करते हैं, like maybe I'm using these nearby words for predicting the next word, right? So what I'm trying to do here is, let's say that I have out, I have off, and then I want it to predict control. Okay. So I can create groups individually. I can divide it into individual groups, and then I am trying to do the prediction of this word. So this thing of treating words individually and then finding the next word is something called as unigram. इसको हम unigram बोलते हैं. So it's basically a group of consecutive words, and here we have three individual words. When I talk about bigram, So bigram में क्या होता है that I can combine two words. So for example, out of will be treated as one single word, then control with whatever it is written will be treated as one single word. Now ये क्या है, combination of two words हैं, and then we put in a comma here, then we put in a comma here, then two words. So these are called as bigram. So when I'm writing n-gram range, तो मैं क्या लिख रही हूँ that you start from unigram and go till bigram. So two का grouping कर सकते हो. If I take three words together, let's say इन तीनों को मैंने club कर दिया. So I create this, treat them as one word. I treat them as one word. I treat them as one word. So this is called as trigram. Is this clear now?
Okay, ma'am. Yes,
Hmm.
ma'am.
The only thing is हम ये क्यों करते हैं if somebody asks you like why do we do it? So just to get better results, हम individually तो words को deal करते ही करते हैं, but then we also try to create this bigrams, trigrams वाला group, and then we apply TF IDF factorizer on top of it as well. So it's basically like you're having more and more data. You're creating better model. So once we have defined this, my TF-IDF factorizer, next I'm going to define my model. So model, I am going to write it here, and then I can call logistic regression. अब आप इसमें multiple models भी add कर सकते हो. So this you can take as an assignment कि how can you add in multiple models and then not just logistic regression, and you're doing it within the pipeline itself. So I'm adding logistic regression. Again इसमें मैं सिर्फ random state set करती हूँ, random state let's say 42. You can define the iteration as well, but I'm skipping doing that. Once I've defined my pipeline, the next step that I need to do here is I'll just call pipeline.fit, and I'll give my X train and Y train. That's it. The moment I do that, it just defines in here, this is TF-IDF part. It has so many, you know, parameters. So हमने n-gram define किया. So n-gram here is the minimum value and the maximum value. So यहाँ पे description भी आ रहा है. You can read more here. And then logistic regression, we have so many parameters, but we just define random state as 42. जो भी हमने define किया वो red color में आ रहा है. So this is how I've created the training pipeline. And I've called it on my data. So I've kind of trained my data as well. Now what I need to do is I need to do some predictions. So I'll just a second. Okay. Once I've defined this pipeline, next I'm going to do the predictions. So for doing the predictions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write validation predictions. Let's say I'll do it on the validation data. So I'll just have y val and I'll call it as spread because ये मेरे prediction value है. I'll just call pipeline dot predict. पहले हम model dot fit करते थे, अभी हम pipeline dot fit कर रहे हैं. Model dot predict करते थे, हम pipeline dot predict कर रहे हैं. And I'll give in my x val here. I'll get some y val prediction, and I can check in the F1 score. So F1 score check करने के लिए I'll call the F1 score method. I'll give in my original data as well as my predicted data. So once I give in here, I can get the validation score, which comes to be 74%. It's fine enough. Like you can do more things, experiment with the values here, parameters, and then you get a better score. Okay, so it's 74% that I'm getting here. If I want to do prediction on new data, right? So given that my test data I have already implemented pre-processing, I can just simply predict on my test set. For doing so, I can just write here pipeline dot predict, and I'll call in my test data, and उसमें I'll give in text column basically. So मुझे सिर्फ text column देना है, and I'll call it as test predictions. And now I have all these predictions here. So these will be nothing basically numbers 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, like 1 for disaster related tweet, 0 for not disaster related tweet. So what I can do is that I can create an output file. So here I can create an output file, and abstract में अजीब से ही लग रहा है. Output file here. And to create this output file, I'm going to just write pd dot data frame here. I'll give in my data. So data मेरा simple सा हो जाएगा, like text column. So basically tweet. I'll label this as tweet. And यहाँ पे मेरा test data का जो text column है वो आ जाएगा. And then I can have label. So label मेरा हो जाएगा test predictions. This these numbers that I have. So I'm basically mapping the text to the prediction. I am creating a data frame out of it. So once I have done this, this is how it looks like. So I can just store it in a data frame here in a variable, and yep. Now I can just print df.head. So you just have a tweet and then you have a label. There can be some misclassifications because अभी हमें सिर्फ 74% accuracy मिला है. But then this is how you can kind of create it. You can do df.tail, will have tweet as well as the label. You can export this file as well as CSV or Excel file. Is this clear to everyone till here? What have we done? I'll summarize it, but before that, just let me know आप लोगों ने यहाँ तक कर लिया है. अनन्या कहाँ तक किया आपने अभी? You're still typing? Or let me know which part should I repeat, like this data frame creation. कुछ doubt है यहाँ पे. दिव्यांशु आपका हुआ यहाँ तक?
Yes, ma'am.
समझ में आया what is this, what, why we have created it, this part?
मैम ये भी आउटपुट फाइल के बाद वाला नहीं है।
ठीक है. So see, again, like ध्यान से सुनना. So what we have basically is मेरे पास test data था here. Let me add a column. I have a test data dot here. Okay. Now इस टेस्ट डेटा में मेरे पास टेक्स्ट है and all these fields that are not relevant for me. Now I have a model. मैंने मॉडल बना लिया and I did prediction. मैंने prediction भी कर लिया. I have these predictions as well. तो prediction में मेरे पास सिर्फ आउटपुट डेटा होगा 1 और 0, right? I don't have labels mapped to these text columns. ठीक है? So what I'm basically trying to do is I'm going to create an output data set, and इस data set में मेरे पास text होगा and उसके against label होगा. Let's say ये वाला जो text है, for this text what is the output from the model? So it is 1. So I just label it as 1. For this text, what is the output for this model? It is 0. So I'll just map it to the label 0. So in order to do this, I'm just creating a data frame where I'm saying जो मेरा data है उसका column header tweet कर दो and इसका column header label कर दो. Tweet में मुझे क्या चाहिए, जो मेरा test data है which is this data, इसका जो text column है वो, उसका जो text column है वो इधर आ गया. Label में मुझे क्या चाहिए, जो test predictions हमने किए, I just want that. Once I have defined this data frame, I'm just calling df.head to show you that how this gets created.
Yes.
Is this clear now to all of you? ठीक है. आई थिंक आप लोग को ये थोड़ा सिंटैक्स याद रखना पड़ेगा, आपको याद नहीं है हाउ आर वी डिफाइनिंग डेटा फ्रेम, इसलिए प्रॉब्लम हुआ. सो थोड़ा सा लाइक रिविजिट योर बेसिक पार्ट एज वेल. Just to summarize this whole project, what we've done till now, पहले हमने imports किए, then we load the data set, so train data and test data, and we did check some rows. What kind of data do we have? So just randomly check some rows to see what is the text column. Since we are building a tweet analysis system, so मेरे लिए सिर्फ ये tweets important है, rest all is unnecessary data. So what I'm going to do is I will be just dealing with one single input feature, which is tweet or text in this case. I've defined a pre-processing function, which where I'm creating a copy of original dataset file first. Then I'm lowercasing it. I am removing any non-alphanumeric character. I'm removing any extra white space on the left and right side. Once we have done this, I am returning my data frame and I'm applying this basic pre-processing on both training data as well as my testing data. Testing data पे क्यों? Because model को clean data ही चाहिए होता है. So even if my data is a test data, a first step that I'll do is I'll implement pre-processing. Now this training data that I have divided it into two parts. So my input feature, which is X, and my output label, which is Y. So text column as well as the target column. Once I have done this X and Y, I have done a simple train test split. Why I'm calling train test split? Because जो मेरा training data है, I'm dividing it into two parts. So train data is divided into X train and Y train, and I am also creating a val set, validation set, X val and Y val. So I'm using 20% of the data for this, 80% of the data for training. I've set random state as 42 so that we get the same results. Once I've done this, I'm just creating a pipeline where I'm calling TF-IDF vectorizer. Why TF-IDF vectorizer? Just to do the encoding process, like I'm encoding the textual data into numbers. So I'm using TF-IDF method for it. And then I'm building a logistic regression model. You can replace the model part here. Logistic regression की जगह आप SVM लिखो and just try and check the accuracy. It will be much better. Then I'm calling pipeline.fit once I've defined the pipeline, and then pipeline.predict to just do the prediction on my validation set. Once I'm done with the prediction on my validation set, I just checked the accuracy. You can plot a confusion matrix here. F1 score is what we've checked. You can check precision and recall as well. So once we've checked this F1 score, what I'm going to do next is I am going to do the prediction on my data, which is unseen data for the model, and I'm going to store whatever my results are in data frame. So the tweet and the label against that tweet that my model has predicted. This is the whole project in a nutshell that we have done. Is this clear to everyone now? कुछ doubt है इस file में? Should we keep it till here?
Yes, ma'am.
ठीक है. I'll share this file. Now this is a plain machine learning project, machine learning and NLP, जिससे हमने regression use किया यहाँ पे. What we can also do is we can use deep learning algorithms as well. So that is what we'll see in the next project. I won't do it hands on. मैं prefer करूँगी walkthrough देने का because the steps are the same for classification. I'll teach you other concepts of NLP so that you get to see, like, I cover two, three different projects with two, three different topics. That is what I'll do. ठीक है? दिव्यांश कुछ बोल रहे थे?
No, ma'am.
Um, if you guys have any doubts, please पूछ लेना. Please try building more models and check, compare the accuracy of different models and just let me know like what results have you observed and share in the group anytime. ठीक है? When can we do the next class? आप लोग बता दो मुझे.
After 29.